Hello, my name is Lizzie Kennedy. I've been an undergraduate tutor at the SVSU Writing Center for 3 years, and I've served as the student coordinator for the Community Writing Center for 2 years. I'd like to welcome you to another SVSU Writing Center video on tutoring writing. Today's topic involves ideals. You want to be an effective tutor and you want to be associated with an effective center, so it makes sense to think about what that means exactly. So take a few minutes to brainstorm. On a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle so you have 2 columns. The first column is called the Ideal Writing Center Tutor. Now, pause the video here for approximately 3 minutes to jot down the things you associate with the Ideal Writing Center Tutor. What do they do? How do they act? What qualifications do they have? You're brainstorming, so don't worry about spelling, it's just a list. And try to force yourself to write for the entire 3 minutes. And when you're done writing, press play on this video again. Next, take about 3 minutes or so and list the things you associate with the Ideal Writing Center in column 2. What does the Writing Center do? How does it operate? What resources does it have? Again, you're brainstorming, so you don't have to worry about correctness. And put down whatever comes to mind and write for the full 3 minutes before continuing on in this video. When we do this exercise as part of training at the SVSU Writing Center, we find that our new tutors often describe the Ideal Writing Center tutor and center in a variety of ways. Let's start by focusing on the ideal tutor. Because brainstorming can be chaotic, we've tried to impose some order by focusing on the ideal tutor in a few different ways: their personal traits, the knowledge they possess, their actions/behaviors, and their beliefs. Some of the personality traits of the ideal tutor are as follows. They are kind, smart, and ethical. They are respectful and like to help others, and those are, I think, more aspects of being kind. They also believe in growing, solving problems, asking questions, and making mistakes but trying again, and that's all tied to being smart in a way. We also think in terms of the knowledge that the ideal tutor has. The ideal tutor doesn't have to be an expert on subject matter in all disciplines. They can work on all types of papers, from profiles of historical figures or events, to analytical essays on symbolism in an English class, to lab reports, or even to scholarship applications and resumes. The ideal tutor, however, does have to understand the writing process and the basics of grammar. They also must be familiar with different ways to get writing done. After all, there's lots of ways to brainstorm ideas, to write an effective intro, or to offer counter-arguments. They should have a good grasp of grammar and documentation, and the ideal tutor should probably be an expert in all these things, but that's not realistic. They don't have to know everything by any means, but they know where to get answers for things that they don't know. Other knowledge, once they've finished training, would also include ways to not own the paper, ways to build rapport with a writer, ways to be non-directive but also when to be directive, how to read for and then prioritize higher order concerns and lower order concerns, how to think in terms of pattern errors, and so on. As another way to consider the ideal tutor, think about how the tutor acts and behaves. You'll see that much of this stems from their personality and the knowledge that they possess. The ideal tutor builds rapport with writers and makes them feel comfortable in a session. They're good conversationalists too, and they respect the writer and don't judge them for not getting something. They pay attention to the writer's needs, concerns, and body language. They're willing to explain things in different ways because they recognize that we all learn in different ways. They're willing to help all writers, those who are struggling and those who aren't. And they know that they'll make mistakes, but they don't let mistakes paralyze them. In a session, you can also see the ideal tutor engaging in many of the best practices you've heard about in other videos. Prioritizing, having conversation and being non-directive, not marking up the paper, showing the writer how to use resources, actively listening, and so on. Outside of a session, the ideal tutor will continue that desire to learn more, such as maybe a research project that gets shared at a conference. They want to help others, which might also happen by creating new resources for the center, or creating a writing contest for the community, training other tutors, or doing special projects like volunteer work involving writing. And they'll often do this with collaborators both within the center and out in the larger community. Now, there's one more category I want to discuss, but a few things to keep in mind before we move on. These are all ideals. No one tutor does all of the above. They might not come in with a full knowledge of MLA, APA, or Chicago Manual, but they can learn those styles. They might struggle with a particular aspect of grammar or how to explain a rule, but they can learn how to do that better. And not all of our SVSU tutors are interested in doing research, and some have such busy schedules that they aren't able to do community service. But again, we've been talking about ideals. So if you feel that you are lacking in some of the above areas, you can always get better at them. Ideals are what we strive for and what we reach for over time and with practice and commitment and change. With that said, let's move on to a fourth category, the beliefs of the ideal tutor. We've saved the beliefs of the ideal tutor for last because they're so important. After all, our behavior, what you do in a session, is based on your beliefs. If you think that not everyone can learn to write, well then you could just be an editor or proofreader and share your knowledge of writing that way. And if you don't think that everyone's voice matters or that writing is a means of learning, well, you'd be super directive in sessions or just write that sentence, paragraph, or the whole paper for them yourself. In other words, what you believe about tutoring affects how you'll tutor. And beliefs are so important in another way. Our beliefs can change. As you learn more about tutoring and writing, you'll be more informed and can make better decisions as a tutor and a writer. You can put your beliefs into action. Yes, there are some basics that should be in place. Tutors need to be smart and kind. They should be good writers. They need to be willing to ask questions. They want to help others. That said, knowing that no one is born a great writer or a great tutor, but they can become one. We think the following beliefs are held by the ideal tutor. You may need to get better in some of these areas, but hopefully you can see how these beliefs should be in the foundation for all the work that you do in your writing center. With the ideal tutor's attributes, knowledge, actions, and beliefs in mind, we find it is much easier to talk about the ideal writing center. In fact, we argue that many of the ways to describe the ideal writing tutor are also ways to describe the ideal writing center. After all, the center is made up of the people that work there. And we think that you'll discover something really cool. The ways to describe the ideal tutor are the exact ways to describe the ideal center. The language may have to change up a bit, but you can still talk about the attributes of a center in the same 4 key ways. The personality of the tutor becomes the basic physical setup of the center. Consider here what a center looks like: lighting, types of tables and chairs, decorations, etc. The knowledge of the tutor becomes the resources of the center. Consider what reference books, like the APA or MLA manual, are on the bookshelves, or what kinds of paper, pens, or computers are available for students' use. The actions of the tutor become how a center operates. What are the procedures for welcoming a student, talking through the session, keeping track of data? And the beliefs of the tutor stay the beliefs of the center. What does your center believe in? What does it see as its values and goals? As you move forward, here are some other things to consider. With your colleagues at your center, brainstorm the ideal center. Are attributes of the ideal tutor really another way to describe a center? What qualities of the ideal tutor and center have not been mentioned? What qualities do you need to work on developing personally? Where can your center improve? Take some of the attributes above regarding an ideal tutor and interpret them. What does being ethical look like as a tutor? Collaborative, accommodating. What qualities of idealness are specific to a high school writing center? To your high school writing center? A writing center out in the community? A writing center in your community? Thank you so much for watching this video, and good luck as you move forward. Remember, you can find more information about our services at sbsu.edu/writing center or communitywritingcenter.com. And if you have questions, email us at ccw@sbsu.edu.